Paul, why don't you come on up as well? And some of you may remember that, well, hands up, so this time last year, we did something called Challenge Mark. And we were reading through Mark's Gospel over a period of about 60 days. And we were encouraging everyone to be reading the same little chunk of Mark's Gospel through that time. Hands up if you remember that or took part in that, etc. Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to do something similar, starting a week tomorrow. So, Paul, what have we got coming up for us?
We've got Journey Through John. It did have a different title. Dan didn't like it because it was a bit boring, and you like alliterations.
And I didn't think this was much better, but at least it was slightly alliterated.
But anyway, so it's Journey Through John, and what we're doing is we're doing a couple of things. One is we're spending 60 days being able to read through different chunks of John and being able to explore those, and that's starting on the 3rd of February. And as you go out, there's a leaflet that you've got which is available, which kind of has the different passages that you can read for each day, and then you get Sundays off. Either for me, I often used it as a catch-up because I'm often ended up getting a bit behind. But yeah, that's there. So that's for 60 days. But also on Sundays, we are using our Sundays to also go through John's Gospel. But we're not, because it's quite a big Gospel and it's really dense. We're actually just going to look at a particular theme, and that's the I am statements that Jesus has, and he mentions that John particularly picks up on.
Wonderful. So what are you hoping that we as a congregation, as we join in with this, what are we going to get out of this journey through John? Or you can alliterate it further and stick Jesus in there as well. And
no, I'm not going to try that.
It becomes a tongue twister then.
Yeah. I think what we're hoping to get out of it is kind of a combination of things. I think last term in the autumn, quite a lot of our church did a course all about the Bible, and it looked about the big story of the Bible from the Old Testament all through to the New. And what I particularly thought about some of these I am statements that John includes in his gospel that Jesus said, is they often relate to Old Testament sort of imagery and analogy. And so what Jesus is kind of saying is actually I'm part of the fulfillment of all these stories and imagery that's there in the Old Testament. So I thought it's a really good way of actually us exploring Jesus, but actually picking up on this whole theme of the whole Bible. I also thought it would be really useful because John's Gospel was written to a community that was in a bit of turmoil because not long beforehand, they were a Jewish community that were believing in Jesus, but actually at that point, they were still Jews, so they went to the synagogue and their cultural life was all based around the synagogue. But not long before John wrote his Gospel, that kind of broke up, and actually the Jews kicked out the Christians from their belief from going into their synagogues because it was deemed heresy from the Jewish perspective. So that was a really big cultural shift for that community where the synagogue was part of their cultural centre. And so John speaks into this and actually says, look, I know that this cultural ground has shaken, but actually, continue to hold on to the belief that Jesus was who we've preached and claimed him to be, that he is God, the divine in human flesh. So hold on to that, despite what other people might be saying. And I think that that's a message that's really important for us today. But also John then went further and actually was also trying to say, as we are forming this new community as ourselves, what's kind of the basis, what are some of the foundations of some of that community should be based on around love, mercy and service. And I think that they're great themes for us to explore as well.
Fantastic. Okay, so the idea is we'll give you one of these on the way out. It starts a week tomorrow. You can access it online as well. There's a little checklist on the back. So each day you read, it's about half a chapter, or a third of a chapter of John's Gospel. And as we journey through this together, then we're able to sort of encourage each other along that journey. So I know there's some people here who have been reading the Bible by themselves for years and years and years. There's other people who really struggle to read the Bible by themselves. I hope this will be a sort of an easy way in for you. And knowing that there's others around who are going to to be reading exactly the same thing, that if you have questions about what you're reading, you can ask them. There'll be a WhatsApp group that you can just scan the QR code to join the WhatsApp group. You can ask questions on there or share insights on there and so on. And let me just read a couple of quotes from that people here said this time last year or at the end of Challenge Mark last year. Someone said, I found it faith-strengthening to understand just how well everything made sense when read in context. So not just sort of dipping into individual bits, but reading a whole gospel through really helped it come alive. Having lots of people doing it together helps. So someone said, I'm not the best at sticking with regular daily Bible reading, but with the guidance of the daily readings, I was able to pretty much stay on track and complete the challenge by Easter. Knowing that others were doing the daily readings was a spur to keep up to date, though the catch-up days proved useful. And someone else said, I was encouraged to keep up with the knowledge that many others in church were doing the same. So that's our encouragement to you. Start on this, even if you're not used to reading the Bible by yourself, and you'll know that there's others around who are doing exactly the same. Join the WhatsApp group if you want, and or talk about it in your cell groups if you're part of a cell group, and so on.
And also, it's on the website, and I think on the leaflet as well, I just steer people to a couple of videos on YouTube by the Bible Project that provide like an overview of John in 2 8-minute videos. They're really, really good. So maybe before we delve into that, create a bit of time to watch those, because they're really good. And if you're not a great reader, then Bible Gateway website has got a really good way in which you can select people that will read the passages to you. So if you're not great at reading, then that's really useful as well.
Excellent, yeah, and I think there's a video version as well, but again, for those who prefer not reading.
Yeah.
But for those who really do like reading, then there's a couple of book recommendations just to help you sort of understand a bit more of the background and so on if you want to dig deeper.